this is continuation of the interview with Charles S. Johnson Jr. and Charles S. Johnson III. And Junie, I believe you were in the middle of a discussion before we stopped the tape.
Well, I was listening to my son's comments about Robert's writings and his counseling and his guidance that he gave to the younger people who were very active in the civil rights movement. And Bobby is very highly regarded as a tactician and an organizer and a planner. But Bobby and I had many conversations about this civil rights movement, and Bobby had lots of respect for the students who were putting themselves on the line. And he was completely awed by it, and he was amazed that the students had listened to his counsel, because Bobby wasn't about to sit at no lunch counter, and he wasn't about to take any bus rides. But they were done by other kids who had more guts than Bobby, and Bobby was to be the first one to admit that there were people who had far more courage than he, who were successful with what they did. And Robert was very active as a civil rights participant from the comfort of Wilberforce or anything north of Ohio River. He did a lot of writing about it, and he's to be commended for his role, but not his physical participation.
Did he ever tell them about leading the siege on the Officers Club?
About doing what?
About leading the siege on the Officers Club during the war?
Oh, we talked about that.
Did he ever tell the students about that?
Yeah, yes, because it was such a farce. It was such a farce, and it was humorous. And actually, reading the book, it was a near disaster in Washington because his rolled up there, and Truman wasn't going to have this foolishness, and it was getting to be very embarrassing to the government, and they wanted it resolved as quickly as possible. But these Southern generals were balking, and so there was some serious flack going back and forth, while the 101 black officers were laughing at the Air Force's indecisiveness about how they handled it, and they were trying to save face. And they were very amused, and Bobby used to tell us about how the German prisoners of war were parading the campus, when they were patrolling the campus, doing KP duty, picking up trash and putting it in baskets, and looking across the stockade and seeing these black officers in these shiny uniforms in the stockade, and the prisoners of war were walking the street, free, cigarette butts. And they thought that was really ridiculous, and the whole thing was a very amazing affair, very amazing affair. But there were some guys who really stood up and who spoke up and who were very vocal and who are still highly regarded now for the stands they did it was a very short period of time, but it was embarrassing for everybody and triumphant for the ones who balked and who insisted, and they found something to integrate down there for them out the field, but they probably moved them to another field. To another field where there wasn't going to be any problem. So it resolved itself. It resolved itself.
One other thing about Bobby and civil rights, and that is that I seem to recall talking with my father about the March on Washington in 1964, and wouldn't it be neat to go? And he seemed to like the idea. I don't think my mother liked it. And conveniently, Bobby was sick in New York, so we went to see him. He had gastritis and was in the hospital, as I recall. But he spent a lot of time that weekend on the phone. And as I subsequently learned, he was on the phone working on John Lewis's speech at the March on Washington, where the plan was, John at that time was the president of the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee and had been through a summer in the South, not getting the kind of cooperation they wanted out of the Kennedy administration, and was all set to give this speech that was blasting the Kennedy administration for dragging its heels on civil rights. And Bobby is one of those folks who counseled John to change the tone of his speech. And that was done from his bedside, from in the hospital on that weekend that we were visiting him.
John, what tell you that?
Interesting.
Why you just not telling me about it?
I thought you
That's what these interviews are for. All right, I want to ask both of you
Okay.
3 last questions. Okay, and I'll give you the questions all at once, but you might want to have a little time to think about them. The first question is, what personal or spiritual value do you rely upon the most, and what is the source of those values? The second question is, using 3 words or 3 sentences, describe how you want people to, what you want people to remember most about you. And the third question, what is your personal motto or creed or shibboleth? All right. First question, what spiritual or personal values do you rely upon the most, and what is the source of those values?
I asked that not be interviewed about spiritual values.
Okay.
Second
Personal values.
Personal values.
Gotcha.
Do I rely on the most?
That you rely on the most. What values are most important to you? And where did you get them?
What I get them?
Yeah.
What value is most important? Persistence. Thoroughness. And quality.
Where did you get those values? What are the source of those values? Do they have any family? Does the family have any connection to those values?
I got them from watching people, students, scholars, professionals, over 60 years of my life, coming and going in a college and educational environment. And I got them by learning to admire achievers who I knew when they were non-achievers, who made highly regarded successes for themselves and the names for themselves by exhibiting the qualities that I had noticed earlier in them when they were neophytes and student scholars, and watching how people conduct their lives, period. I have no motto.
Okay. All right. Trey, what personal or spiritual values do you rely upon the most, and what's the source?
I don't know what the source is. I had a heavy dose of character building, value transmission in a very highly structured way in the educational setting I was placed in. I've never been in a public school. I've always been in an educational institution that had some sort of religious affiliation. My preschool was Jewish. My K through 12 experience was all parochial.
Mm-hmm.
college experience was at an institution that began as an Episcopal seminary.
No.
My law school
Really?
was a Jesuit institution.
And you went into what? As a professional?
I went to, see there.
Sorry.
That's your problem.
What?
Yeah, that's your hang up. I'm not gonna deal with your hang up. I don't need to own
Personal
your
spiritual
hang up.
values.
But no,
And
I
the
mean,
source.
and we're talking about the source, and I will tell you that if you have nuns as your teachers
Mhm.
for, K through 8, and you have religion classes 5 days a week,
Mhm.
and you
church
go to
6 days a
mass
week.
6 days a week,
Yes.
something comes, if you pay attention,
Mhm.
take any of it seriously, something gets through, and something got through, and it resulted in my own set of values. It is not necessarily the set of values of the people who were teaching
Mhm.
me, but it was certainly informed by what they had to say.
Okay.
And I end up with a real deep appreciation for the indomitable strength of the human spirit. If you invest everything that you can in the development of an individual, mind, body, and soul, you hopefully come away with his character. And I never was able to put it into words until I visited the campus at Hampton and saw the inscription on the Booker T. Washington statue. There are several inscriptions.
Mhm.
One of them talks about education.
Mhm.
One of them talks about character.
Okay.
It says character is power.
Hmm.
You can, if you want to have power
Mhm.
in the world, you can do so in no better way than have a strong character. And that was at a period of time in my life when that was the main thing I had to call upon,
Mhm.
was whatever character I had at that point.
Mhm.
And prior to that time, I did not know whether I would be able to, I did not know that I would be tested in the way that I was being tested at that time,
Mhm.
and how I would respond.
Mhm.
And I think I was able to respond and survive, and persevere because of the values transmission
Mhm.
and the character that resulted.
Very, very nice. Profound.
It's a long way to
Parochial,
answer.
parochial skills.
If he'd gone to Howard, he'd been rich by now, wouldn't he?
Yeah. You never know.
I didn't know about this Jesuit education, though. I didn't hear about that. I didn't mean to say
Pay for it.
I didn't mean to send you a big brainwash. Big brainwash. I should have sent you someplace else.
Jesuit
Any,
lawyer.
any last short comments? Any last short, brief comments? What do you think of the reunion this weekend?
What do I think will do what to this reason?
Of this reunion?
What do I think? Oh, well, it's an interview business. It's innovative. That's new. Let's give people a chance to know people in depth, and it puts a name on faces. And I think if we get a chance to admire some of Evelyn's people, we're gonna know this Range family pretty good, pretty good. And there are a lot of questions I want to have answered before this is all over.
Okay.
I think it's been a wonderful time so far. Everybody has been quite relaxed and done what they wanted to do, and I think that the planner, Trey, and his cohorts and his Atlanta participants have done a very masterful job. And we're not through yet. We ain't seen nothing yet.
Okay,
Period.
thank you. Trey, you have been one of the principal planners of of this reunion weekend. Any general comments or perhaps advice to
Well,
future planners?
This has been good for me, in the sense that I never really was able to, or I'm not going to say, hey, that's not honest. I never really made the effort it takes to understand how all this fits together. And then being involved in the planning of this event gave me the excuse. I guess it gave me a reason to look into how all of us are connected, to get to place some faces with some names, and get to know folks in a way that I haven't gotten to know folks in just coming to a couple of reunions. So it's been good for me. It has been an effort to try to generate interest. And I don't know how to assess the level of interest we were able to generate. And we have a mailing list that has some duplication in it, but there are 100 names which I imagine represent households. And so I would have expected more than 55 registrants at a reunion. I don't know whether that is a reasonable expectation or not a reasonable expectation. There is clearly a committed core of folks who feel the value and appreciate the value in connecting. And one of the unanswered questions in my mind is, why is it just that core? Hopefully we will answer that, or either answer the question or change the reality.
Is that Charles or Junie? Yes, one last question for you. I understand from reliable sources that you are a pretty consistent reunion attendee. Is that correct?
So far.
Okay. What makes this reunion different? Or what is so important to you about reunions?
Well, really it's renewal. It's renewal. Really casual acquaintances, which have been casual before these interviews, they won't be casual after these interviews. But I'm concerned that we're meeting every 2 years, and in 2 years' time there have been changes in everybody's life, and I think there's some noteworthy changes that I hope come out tomorrow that I think the membership should be aware of. That there are new children being born into this family. There have been some family losses, I'm sure, somewhere along the line. I know we've lost several in the 12 years we've been coming. There have been promotions, there have been associations, there have been marriages, and marriages to come. And the family is changing. It's a dynamic thing that keeps moving. And I think in the nation, and I think there's some noteworthy accomplishments, such as J. Charles's accomplishment with the Air Force, and Nikki's accomplishment, a near accomplishment, and near disaster with Brown University. And there are some enough young children here to let me know that some of them were either newborn or conceived since the last reunion. So I'd like to hear about some of those things, what the names and whose children they are and where they're going. And I was looking at thinking about Evelyn's granddaughter. I'm gonna keep on hitting on Evelyn. Evelyn's granddaughter fortunately has relocated, of all places, to the Atlanta area. So it shows how families move and change. In the old days, it was a major accomplishment to go 100 miles from one place to another. We do that in 2 hours now, and there's mobility now. And families are not standing still like they used to. They used to be rooted to the land, or rooted to a plan, rooted to a job. This family travels, goes from place to place, and families change. They relocate. And networking is a wonderful thing for young folks to learn if they don't know about it now. And it gives us a chance to move along, gives us a chance to brag about our children and to brag about our ancestors. We bragged about our ancestors long enough. Let's brag about our kids. Let's keep moving. And I think we ought to play that up. Kids are coming. You see this kid down there enjoying things. These are the kids who are going to be carrying these reunions on 25 years from now. Right now, they are here out of curiosity because they were dragged here. Because between ages of 10 to 20, and that's when it gets to be a curiosity. Right. Between the ages of 20 to 30, they look at us as pretty strange. You know, what they come together for. But between 30 and 40, it begins to make some sense. In 40 and 50, it becomes a little bit more enjoyable. After 60 or 70, it becomes an obsession. You want to know who's live, who ain't live, who's sick.
That's true, though. You're right.
And you gotta hold your breath until you get down, until Evelyn brings you up to date.
Right.
That's what it is, and that's why. If Evelyn hadn't been here, I would have stayed home.
And I would like to thank, what is it, Charles and, Charles, right? Okay. For a very entertaining interview. This is July 28th, 2001, Branch Family Reunion interviews. In
Lake Lanier Islands,
Lanier
Georgia.
Islands, Georgia. Thank you.